Welcome to Your Voice Heard with Dr. Marilyn Pendleton. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to my channel. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Your Voice Heard with Dr. Marilyn Pendleton. And here we amplify the voices of different grievers, and you see the different faces of various grievers. We're giving grievers an opportunity and a platform to share their journeys to recovery and resilience. Now, today, my special guest is Aqil Ford-Bey. Welcome, Aqil.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Pendleton.
And
glad to be here.
I am so glad you're here. And I just want to, we are recording this at the end of April. However, we won't air yours until June. But can you tell the audience how we know each other?
Yes, I had the fabulous opportunity of meeting you through my dear friend, Gia Ruggiero, the newlywed Gia Ruggiero. And I met you at her bridal shower for the first time, and I was taken away by your poise and your intelligence. And then I had the pleasure of going on the destination wedding trip in Dominican Republic with you last week. And we had the time of our lives.
Yes.
Got to know each other much better and communicated and related in ways that I couldn't even imagine.
And now we are here.
Here we are.
So I will say, Aqil, that with grief, the CDC in 2020 defined grief as a response to traumatic events, a response to death, a response to things that bring us comfort, a change in our lives. And grief is a normal and natural response to loss of any type. So I wanted to hear your story about what specific loss that you encountered as a griever.
Okay. I think for anyone, and specifically, especially for me, there are many forms of loss, and many grieving processes that we go through at my ripe age of 41. But so I guess I could say, to start it off, my first loss and grief, I think is I'd have to say, and maybe I don't know if I can call it a loss, but having an absentee father figure, an absent father in my life was probably the first form of loss that I've experienced. In hindsight, of course, as a child, I may not have recognized that. And then the loss of my freedoms, sexual freedom as my sexual preference, as I'm a homosexual male. And I was in the closet for 29 of my 41 years. Mm-hmm. And I've also faced and been subjected to incarceration. So loss of my actual freedom and liberties as a civilian is another. So there are many. We can talk about any or all of them, whichever we have time for.
And grief is very complex, and it affects us physically, intellectually, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. And for example, when you bring up loss as not having a father present in your life, that is a loss that a lot of children experience nowadays, and particularly in the African American community. And how did that, the other loss you mentioned was being a male, and also the loss of your freedoms and incarceration, and what feelings came up when you were encountering those various grieving events or losses, for example, when you were a child?
So when I was a child, as far as the loss of or not having a father figure in my life, as a child, I didn't necessarily feel as though, or I didn't acknowledge or recognize maybe that I experienced a loss because I was showered in love immensely by my mother. Immensely. I never felt that I was losing anything, and I also had a relationship with my father's side of the family, a close relationship, as my mom was best friends with his niece, and I was always very involved and around that side of the family. In hindsight, as I get older, I realized that there was a loss, and there are questions, and there are doubts, and I don't know myself, I don't know him. The questions of, does he love me? Does he, did he ever love me? So it played on my self-esteem. It played on my judgment, and the decisions that I made. Part of the reason, and I can roll right into my incarceration, a lot of that had come from the absent father and the not knowing him personally. Specifically, although we've had minimal communication and conversation, he was not a direct part of my life and a regular part of my life. And there are still things to this day that I still questions that I have, and I still need resolution there. But he made the mistakes that I've made, and the decisions that I made that landed me in prison were me trying to live up to his, if you want to say it, his legacy, if you want to call it a legacy, although it was negative, it was the wrong path, but it was what he did and how he was and who he was glorified, by all the people around me and everyone in our neighborhood and in the community. And so it made me strive for that, to seeking his attention by saying, I can do what he did and I can do it better. And it was the wrong path. As far as the sexuality goes, I felt I've always been a very confident person. So I was never the reclusive or introvert. I've always been an extrovert. I've always had that. But in hindsight, now at my age, I realize that it held me back. I restrained myself in so many ways and restricted myself, and and it was a self confinement that I also had. So it was another freedom and liberty taken away from me. And it was imposed by the environment and the people around me, and feeling that maybe I wouldn't be accepted, or feeling that I would disappoint my mother, who was the only person in the world that I could count on and that I loved, and her opinion honestly was the only one that really mattered the most. I never really had a fear of facing the masses, or my peers, or friends, or that was never really an issue. It was the fear of disappointing my mother. I know that she's always wanted grandchildren, and she's always given me any and everything that I could ever possibly dream of in my life. So I just was like, how can I disappoint her in that way? So that was a part of the those are some of the feelings that I have experienced going through those grieving processes.
And I'll tell you, it's just a natural, it's just basically kind of innate in us that we want the approval of our parents. We want them to be proud of us. But sometimes when we defer to a different path, whether that path be positive or negative, it's all a matter of perspective. And sometimes we just really want to emulate them, because if we emulate them, then we will receive love that we feel that we desire and that we want, and we look and see other people having these various relationships with their parents, but our lens changes. Sometimes it changes as we get older.
Agreed. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Definitely, my perception has definitely changed immensely. And no longer am I necessarily seeking approval from anyone anymore. And if I find myself doing that, I'm able to identify and reel myself in. And that came with I discovered that and learned that, and I'm still learning and perfecting the techniques of that through the practice of yoga and being exposed to that, and also my incarceration, because it gave me the time. It forced me to sit still and learn myself and develop an intimate relationship with myself. And do some introspection and self-reflection, and learning who I am, because all of my life, all those 29 years, I was living for other people. I was living to please other people and to gain the approval of other people. So in that sense, there was, as real as I am and as I thought I was, because I told myself at a very young age that if I'm keeping this secret of my sexuality, and every day of my life and every second of my life was filled with anxiety and worry, to the point that I would tear my fingernails off and pick at scabs in my head, because I was always worried, when is the ball going to drop? When is someone going to say something about my sexuality, about my voice sounding like a gay man, or about my hips swaying too much? So at my age now, and I can reflect back and say, wow, Aqil, you had anxiety and you've had it all your entire life, and it has affected you, tremendously. Self-diagnosis. This is self-diagnosis. I have not.
Okay.
I have never been to a therapist, but I've learned myself. I've read a lot of books. I think no one understands me better than me.
And this is so important that you said that you didn't go to therapy. And it's so important that people realize that there is no one single path to recovery and healing. So tell us about your healing journey, where it started, what methods that you use. You started telling us a little bit, but go into a little bit more detail about that.
Okay. So I guess I'd have to say that my healing journey started in prison, when I was at my lowest. I was sentenced with possession with intent to deliver. I had been incarcerated and convicted several times. It took me a few times to get it through my head and realize that this isn't the right path for you. And it took for me to be incarcerated I ended up serving 5.5 years. I was sentenced to 10 to 20 years, actually. I had 2 convictions, and I was sentenced to 5 to 10 years running consecutively, meaning I had to serve the 5 years of the one and then start the 5 years on the other. During that time, in that time, that's a significant amount of time. I had suffered some losses. I lost, my aunt. I called her my second mom. I wasn't able to attend the funeral. It was, I had some very pivotal moments in there. My family home, in the loss of my grandparents. I was raised in my grandparents' home. My mom always stayed there, and she kept the house up, did all kind of renovations and all things. And family disputes happened, and her sister had come in and had the house pulled from underneath of my mom and the 2 aunts that were still there. She sold it, put it up for sale, had my mom evicted. So seeing my mom go through these types of struggles in there really made me open my eyes, and it really made me hurt, because I realized there was nothing that I could do for her. She does everything for me, and I can't do anything. My hands are tied, literally. you know, at this point in time. So it made me sit with myself. It made me, you know, the universe has a way of forcing you and oppressing you and putting pressure on you and making you, if you don't take the signs that it gives you, it's going to force them upon you. It's going to take away everything else that's distracting you. And that's what it did. And it sat me in a cell. And so I had to sit there, and that's the first place that I practiced yoga. And it was a very short-lived experience, because it was instructed by some inmates in a state prison in Pennsylvania, Somerset. A lot of the guys used to make jokes like, you guys are going to yoga, and then they would come and try it, and they would quit halfway through, or they never come back. So the program didn't last very long, because a lot of guys couldn't do it. As tough as they are and as strong as they are, they couldn't get through yoga. So the sense of yoga and the practice of yoga, a lot of people think it is physical. So there is physical, and it takes some strength, but the bigger practice of yoga is the mental practice. And forcing yourself to be able to. So my biggest challenge, and most people's biggest challenge in yoga, and I find that a lot of people who practice yoga, Gia, our mutual friend, has diagnosed me with ADHD, and I can see the symptoms myself as well. So the biggest challenge for me is sitting still, you know, and meditation and quieting your mind, and, you know, taking control of your mind, and you know, not having all the chaos there, you know. So you have to practice breathing and practice sitting still, and being in uncomfortable positions. And yoga teaches you to deal with discomfort and to settle with discomfort, and teaches you that not anything in this life is eternal and lasts forever. Even pain, even love, even grief, as we're discussing right now. You know, so the thing that it taught me is that I had always been running from things and emotions and things that were unpleasant or uncomfortable for me. I would just avoid it. And I'm just like, oh, I just want to be happy. I'm not going to deal with that sadness or that anger. I'm going to leave that away. But it doesn't heal you. It suppresses those emotions, and that energy and those forces sit dormant and stagnant in your body, and they make you sick. It literally makes
actually, yes, they actually accumulate.
Exactly.
And it shifts your body at a cellular level, and it attributes to illness. Yes.
Exactly.
On.
Both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so I didn't learn that deep of the aspect while I was incarcerated, but once I came home and I was vowed, I said, I'm going to get my mom and my aunts back together and under one roof, and things like that. And when I began to love myself, then I decided that I knew I could have better than I had, and I deserved better than I had. And there's no reason why I couldn't be Beyonce or the next celebrity here, that they're no better than me and I can do it too, you know? And then that's when I started my fitness journey. And that's when I joined.
Yeah, your fitness journey. So tell us about your fitness journey, because I did look at your Instagram page.
Yeah. So my fitness journey began during COVID. COVID really was a pivotal moment. I caught COVID early on at the beginning of it. And it was very scary. It was the first time that I was ever on the verge of passing out. I remember when I just go into the bathroom would make me breathless. And at one time I did, and I was like, I think I need to go. So my mom took me to the ER. I made it to the car, and I was starting to like go black out and get tunnel vision, and my fingers were starting to clamp in, and I was afraid. I said, if I had to put the windows down. I said, if I lose consciousness, I don't know if I'm going to wake up. So it was one of the scariest moments of my life. Thankfully, I was okay. It was dehydration. I needed to just get through that, but it changed the way that I saw things and that I thought about things. It made me want to live a healthier life. And at that point in time, I joined a gym. I started with the YMCA, And then eventually I made my way to Lifetime. And I found my community, I found my tribe. I was determined, literally determined. Immediately, I jumped into a challenge. Within the first week, there was a 60-day challenge that I jumped into. And so they had workouts planned and scheduled on the app. And I just had to go into the gym and do these workouts. And I did it. And I lost 25 pounds in those 60
Wow.
days. And in that period of time, I would see Gia, our mutual friend, and we became friends. And, you know, we would support each other in the gym. And then she introduced me to our friend Regina's class at Lifetime. Her yoga class is a heated power vinyasa, and it is transformational. And she helped me and guided me along this way. And she told me from the very beginning, once we got to know each other, I'd stay after class every day and have a discussion with her. And I just connected with her and felt so, I found someone who understood me, and I understood her. And she told me, this is your calling. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You know, you're already taking care of your family member. As I would share my life with her, she's like, you're already, you know, coaching your family members and your friends. You're just doing it for free. You know, now it's time to, you know, turn it into your career and do it.
Well, I will tell you, when we were in the Dominican Republic for the epic wedding celebration,
Epic. It was
and
a movie.
it was epic.
Yes.
The next morning, the morning after the wedding celebration, there was yoga class. Regina was leading it, and she will be on the show as well at another date. And I was so impressed when I saw yoga. My familiarity with yoga was movements, breathing, but I didn't see it as very engaging and inspirational. But Regina's class was phenomenal. Of course, I was taking pictures of people. And when I saw you and Gia and Molly, it was just breathtaking. And I'm motivated. I'm excited to be able to meet with Regina. Hopefully, I'll be able to join one of her classes in the future. But I appreciated the perspective that I had, and her, providing the class from an approach of life coaching, coaching, and having the participants, look inward as well as pushing out, in and pushing out.
I love the way you describe that, because that's exactly what it is.
Yes. And so I can see how it would transform lives in that manner. Now, I have a question. So, what does life look like? How does your journey, your recovery and resilience journey look like? What's next for you? I mean, let us know.
It is, I'll tell you this, it isn't easy. I do my best to make it look easy. So, and I say that to say, even when I decided to take the steps that I've taken, people are, my friends and family are just so used to me. They're just like, oh, you're one of the smartest people I know. You'll do it. You'll get it done. And I'm like, this is pretty difficult. You know what I mean? But I came home from being incarcerated in 2017, and I took my real estate. I took classes to pass the real estate exam to go for my real estate license. I took those classes, and I did not take the state test until 5 years later, once those transcripts were about to expire, because there was a bout of fear. There was a lot of fear. When you have those types of marks on you, you have these types of strikes and red tape, or almost if maybe I have the adulterous A on my head, I have 3 strikes. I'm a black male. I'm a male. I'm a black man. I'm gay, and I'm a convicted felon. So I'm not on a level ground. I'm not on an equal playing field. I have to still make it to the surface and then begin my journey. So if in a sense you could say I have a handicap, a significant one, compared to everyone else and the other civilians in life. I'm currently still on state parole until August of this year. So I cannot wait to gain that freedom and say that I am a 100% civilian and no longer a property of the state.
And we will celebrate that.
Yes, I certainly plan to celebrate that. Yeah, and I would love if you would celebrate it with me. I would love that. So I say that to say that all of those things are very oppressing, very, very oppressing. And it can definitely play on your self-esteem and on your self-confidence. And so for a while, I thought, I stayed in my comfort zone, even when I was a child, and I applied to 3 colleges. I applied to Drexel, Morehouse, and Howard, and I was accepted to all 3. But I went to Drexel because it was my comfort zone, because I was closer to home. I could go home every weekend and have my car and just stay around my friends and family who knew not to speak or say anything about or question my sexuality, because they knew it was going to lead to some opposition. We might fight, So now I've learned that, you have to push through the struggle, because as I was saying before, you can't run, you can't run from what's uncomfortable. You have to go through the discomfort and get through and get to the other side. And that's the way you find success, and that's the way you find happiness. And that's the way. And I had to take back my power, and stop telling myself that I couldn't do this because of this. I could have even almost been using it as an excuse from time to time. So with that being said, as I said, Regina kept telling me, you're supposed to be a coach. You're supposed to do this. So I decided, in the midst of that, taking my test for the realtor's license, I started my fitness journey, and I became so passionate and so enthralled with it that I was afraid to do anything else. I've become a perfectionist by being a homosexual and having a mom who had high standards, and she just said, stay on the honor roll, I'll give you whatever you want. And that was that was what I did. I did what I needed to do to get what I wanted. And it took me a while to realize that you want a whole lot more than that, Aqil. You want a whole lot more. You don't just want to settle, and you don't just want the bare minimum, and you're worthy of more. So I decided to take classes for my fitness journey. I said, even if I don't teach, even I got my I'm a certified personal trainer now. As of New Year's Eve of last year, I got certified through NASM, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, with that. So I had that certification, and then I jumped right into another certification for Steel Mace Vinyasa. So this modality.
Pause.
Okay.
So everyone, most people know of fitness, being a trainer, but can you share that name again of that particular method, and what is it? Can you describe that for us?
Most certainly. So Steel Mace Vinyasa is the name of the certification and the course that I took. It was the most challenging course that I had taken. It was a 4-month course. I ended up having to extend it for a month and pay extra for that. But I determined, and I told myself, because by the end of the course, I have a signature program written out and ready to roll out. So I said, okay, Aqil, you keep starting all these different things, and you have these ideas and starting them, but you're not finishing them and seeing them through. The fear was holding me back. So I said, if I do this, I'm ready to go right into business. never did I expect that I was going to learn so much more about myself, that it was going to be such a self-discovery journey. I just thought, okay, I'm going to learn this new practice of exercise, and I'm going to be able to teach it. Because one of the fears of me moving into it, while Regina was telling me, you're meant to coach, this is your calling, you're meant to coach, I was always saying, I always felt like I wasn't good enough to teach any specific thing. So I was like, well, what will I teach? I'm not a professional at anything. I don't have enough experience in any of this, to teach spin or to teach dance, or these are things that I love, but I was just felt like I'm not, I'm not experienced enough or professional enough to do it. So when I came across this modality, the practice was so beautiful that I was like, this is me. This is, it's new enough. This is going to be my niche modality. So Steel Mace Vinyasa brings the strength component to yoga. And so what a steel mace is if most people might be familiar with a mace in the medieval times, they've used a mace. Was made with just a stick or a rock attached at the top and tied onto the top. So they've made a modern rendition of it. Of the steel mace. So it's a steel pole with a weighted globe at the top. So the weight of it is unevenly distributed. So most of the weight is in the globe, which you would hold at the top, and you wield it. You can wield it like a staff or like a sword.
Okay.
It is a form of martial arts in a sense.
Okay.
Which is enthralling and intriguing enough. It's a very empowering practice because just holding a weapon makes you feel empowered, so it puts a sense of power in you just by holding it. And then being able to wield it and move and incorporate it into your yoga practice, it adds the strength component and the resistance training that you need to yoga, because yoga, you can get a lot of flexibility and you can gain some mobility, but yoga needs load and it needs some strength. You need strength component aspect in there as well. So this practice allows me I teach a recovery-based practice. Mm-hmm. So I base my practice more so on properly recovering from your exercise and knowing and understanding and being in tune with your body and learning your body. So I teach people how to take their heart rate in before and in between during our workouts, so that they are aware and they become accustomed and they learn and experience and know how they feel when their body is at work and when it's at rest. And I teach them how to induce their parasympathetic nervous system and come back down to a recovery state and lower their heart rate once it gets elevated to a certain level, and teach them how to stay out of fight or flight mode.
That sounds really powerful. So now I need for you to share with our audience how they can contact you.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah. I am right now. I'm currently designing my website. My website name is majesticmaneuvers.com. So that's I guess I should spell it out. MAJESTICMANEUVERS.com.
And you know what? Our artistic specialist, Jalea Moody, she can edit all of that in so that we can have that information along with. You do have an Instagram page as well.
Yes. So my Instagram page is my name. It used to be Your Majesty 1123. Again, as I said, I told myself I would never allow anyone to make me feel like I was less than them. So I put myself as royalty all the time. Yeah. The name of my signature program is called Releasing Your Royal Highness. So I'm teaching people to release and step into and free their authentic selves, their soul, because the soul is your authentic self. And people tend to suppress that, and it gets stifled and suffocated because people are people pleasing. and doing what others expect in one of us, as opposed to listening to your passions and your intuition and what really brings you joy. You know, you have to ascertain, and you have to work towards what really brings you joy. But so my Instagram name is now my name, Aqil Ford-Bey, AQILFORDBEY. Okay, and you can find my programs and my classes that I offer at my stand store. So the link will be in my bio on my Instagram account, as well as you can find it from my website.
Oh, thank you so much, Aqil. I really thank you for joining us and helping to heal, inspire, educate, and empower. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me. I really, truly appreciate you and your belief in me and your confidence in me. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I am a believer. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You so
Take
much.
care.
You as well. I'm so grateful for this platform, and I wish you much, much success with it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. I'll talk